Hey loves, it's Janelle, the relationship coach behind The Successful Invisible. Today we're diving into a conversation most folks are too scared to touch. Why so many men expect women's labor, feel entitled to it, and even get annoyed when a woman dares to rest. If you've ever felt drained, overworked, or like a man was trying to turn you into his personal help desk, housekeeper, therapist, or chef, this video is going to be a breakthrough for you. Before we jump in, make sure you hit like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want deeper support tools, coaching prompts, and community, join my exclusive coffee coaching community. The link is in the description. Let's get into it.
You have to let men know up front, I'm not interested in no extra labor. I'm actually interested in lightening my load, not adding to it. And I'm not going to audition for you to have a role in my life. And I'm the main character where I have created a life of ease and a life of peace. You have to tell these men, I don't know how to cook. I don't clean up. I have a housekeeping service. I don't go to the grocery store. I have my groceries delivered. I don't do my laundry. Someone does that for me. I can pay for someone to do the labor for me. The only work that I am interested in is my career in which I get paid very well to do. I'm not interested in providing free labor to no man. So if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you consider wifey material, that is not me, and I'm fine with that. This is a soft life over here. We're not constantly being in a state of labor and work over here because men know exactly what they're doing and they're looking for a woman to do labor for them.
Men are only interested in what you can do for them. They want your body when it's convenient, your time when it benefits them, and your energy when they're empty. They want you up before dawn, cooking, cleaning, solving their problems, and carrying their children, while they offer nothing but demands and entitlement in return. They don't want partnership. They want free labor, sex, support, silence, submission, all for the low cost of their presence. They'll call you selfish for saying no. They'll shame you for wanting reciprocity. They'll insist a real woman holds a man down while refusing to lift a finger for you. They want your grind, your gifts, and your grace, but never your joy or your boundaries. You are not a servant. You are not a nurse. You are not his mother or his maid. Stop letting men milk you for every drop of your brilliance and then hand you crumbs in return.
So I was watching this podcast the other day, and it became apparent to me that the most vocal men on these social media platforms are the ones who only see domestic value in women when they perform free labor. They, let me rewind. A man said that basically rewarding a faithful woman who has been there through the struggles, the struggle love situation, way of rewarding her is turning her into a housewife. And the woman on the podcast said that rewarding me is not turning me into a housewife. Rewarding me is turning me into a woman of leisure. And the man said, well, that's the same thing. And he was genuinely baffled when she came back to tell him that that is not the same thing. See, back in the day when black women had to go to work for rich white women and they had to cook and they had to clean and they had to babysit their children. And then after they did that, they went back to their own homes and then they cooked and they cleaned and then they watched their own children. See, the women that they went to work for, those were women of leisure. They didn't have to cook and they didn't have to clean and they weren't even responsible for the basic responsibilities of caring for their own children because Nana did that. You understand? Then these black women went back home to perform these same duties in their own home free of charge. And I say free of charge because they were contributing equally to the household. They were making sure bills were paid. And they were making sure 100% of the domestic duties were taken care of. And I think that this is the arrangement that a lot of these vocal men on these podcasts and things are looking for today because they don't really value a woman. And they see inherently that this free labor that a woman gives them in a relationship is the only value that a woman offers. And to this, I say bullshit. If you were to hire a maid and you were to hire a chef and you were to pay for daycare, you would see the value of this woman if she stopped doing these things for you for free. I think this is why men have such an issue with child support. I think this is why men have such an issue with kicking in to do things for women that they are no longer having physical relationships with. And so, anyway, I was talking to one of my best friends who was a man, and also spent decades being a pimp. So you can't tell me that I'm not getting information from a man who is not very well experienced in using women for their value, their perceived value. And, one thing that he had to say is that I have to remember that a lot of men on these podcasts and who are very vocal on social media are degenerates.
Girl, I was dating this guy one time, right? And he asked me to retwist his locks. And I told him I'm not a loctician. I barely like retwisting my own. You see this? Then he asked me to help him find a place to live. And I told him I'm not a realtor. Once he finally found a place to live, he asked me to help him move. So I just gave him the contact of my ex-boyfriend because he was big and strong and he actually did live near him. And I was like, he's big and strong. He can probably help you move. You know what his response was? Oh, no, it's okay. I was just trying to save some money.
Sometimes I wonder, are the males okay? I did a post about the women's strike in Iceland that just happened recently, in which I talked about how much I loved that they were highlighting unpaid labor in addition to paid labor. And someone got in the comments and was like, yeah, dude, that unpaid labor, totally agreed with me. And this person...
You don't see men complaining when we fix your car or house for you for free. Fake laugh. So it seems like I don't really care, even though I obviously do because I'm up in these comments press. Don't have kids if that's the unpaid labor you employ.
Sometimes I wish TikTok would just give me like one free pass a month to just read people down the way they deserve to be read down. But unfortunately, they haven't come up with that program yet. So I'll just do this nicely. Just curious, yes, guy. How often do you get oil changes? I don't know about you, but I only get 2 a year. Is that how often you feed your children? Twice a year? What about baths? Laundry? Take chauffeuring them around town. You only do that twice a year? How about when they get sick? They only get sick twice a year? How often do you fix houses, dog? Because if you have to fix a house as often as you have to deal with the child when you're raising them, then that house needs to be condemned. Males like to make these false equivalencies, right? Another one of their favorite tactics in the patriarchy. They like to make these false equivalencies in order to silence women so that we don't speak up about things like our unpaid labor. Because the truth is, the whole entire society that we live in, not just our partners, not just our husbands and our baby daddies, but the whole entire society benefits off of women's unpaid labor. If women came together and said, you know what? I had to roast this baby in my stomach for 10 months, pay me. I'm running this house, managing this house, running everything, pay me. I'm a housekeeper, I'm a personal assistant, nurse, I'm a counselor, I'm a chauffeur, I'm a nanny and a cook, pay me. The patriarchy intentionally devalues women's work, even in the workforce. Predominantly female professions have lesser salaries than predominantly male professions do. The patriarchy devalues childbearing and it minimizes the risks of childbearing because they know if they acknowledge it, they're gonna have to start paying motherfuckers for having these babies. Patriarchy would have you believe that it runs on ingenuity and power and strength. But really, it runs on the unpaid labor of women. Period. Full stop. And that's why you have dudes like this commenter running into the comments to silence women when we speak about unpaid labor. Because he knows. The day that women demand compensation for our unpaid labor is the day that the patriarchy falls.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but men do not marry for love. Men do not marry for love. I had a guy recently basically ask me to marry him. And do you know what he said was the qualifications as to why I would make a good candidate to marry him? He said, I can't cook worth a damn. So he needs somebody to cook for him. He says, I go through a schmex cycle every 2 to 3 days. So he needs somebody, he needs a living schmex bot. Then what else did he say? Oh, you have a beautiful daughter, and I've always wanted to have a beautiful daughter. So that would be like my dream. And at this point, you could just donate me your eggs. Okay, so you need a baby maker. And the only thing that was appealing about this arrangement was that he said I would never have to work again. But if I'm child rearing, cooking, cleaning, and schmexing him, sounds like a whole lot of work to me. So if you need any indication that men don't marry for love, this is your sign right here. Yeah. And before you fellas run to my comments, I'd rather die alone. I'd rather die alone.
This is a red flag you need to look out for if you're going to get married and have kids, because my goodness, my friends are going through it right now. So I'm talking to my friend who's trying to conceive, and she's in the car with her husband not husband, boyfriend, not even fiance yet. And they're talking about having kids, and she brings up having a nanny. And he immediately goes, I can't stand women who don't want to raise their own children. I mean, huge red flag, even in the way that he just talked to her. I think that was completely inappropriate. But she should have known this was coming, because months prior, she brought up the housekeeper conversation, and he goes, oh, housekeeper? Why would I need a housekeeper when you work from home? This is such a red flag. My ex-husband wasn't the best, and we actually didn't have a housekeeper, which was a huge red flag. But luckily, he believed in childcare, and he did whatever he needed to do to make sure that we were comfortable in that way. So one example is he had a personal assistant, and I think when I was like 6 months pregnant, I was just like, I feel like we're gonna need help. And he was like, you know what, she needs more hours. So whenever I'm traveling, which was, half of the month, she'll just come here and basically be help. Or even if she's working from home, like she'll just be helping me and you. And I wasn't even working at the time. Like I felt like I needed a nanny, and she stepped in. And every time we needed help, he always provided it. So as soon as we gave birth, his mom came down and helped for a few weeks. And whenever we traveled, like he would buy my friends or my siblings tickets so they can travel with us. When we lived in Portugal, I was working, so we had two nannies. And it's not like these people just like came and completely took care of my kid and I didn't have to do anything. It's more like I just had help, because everyone needs a village. And on the topic of housekeeping, so the last guy I dated didn't have a housekeeper, but he was super neat and super tidy. And it wasn't because he didn't believe in them, he just didn't need one. But I'm sure that he would have one, like if he had a family. It was just his mode of being. But a lot of men actually want modern day slaves. So when you're dating someone very early on, there's ways you can definitely ask this, but bring up the housekeeper conversation, bring up the nanny conversation. And even for me, like I pretty much all date guys who own their own homes. If they don't have a housekeeper already, side eye. A lot of men had mothers who were so self-sacrificing, especially black men, that they don't even know what it looks like to have a regular amount of help. Growing up, we didn't have lots of money for childcare, like we never had nannies and everything. But even now, my mom's adopted 4 kids, and her sister was a preschool teacher, and she's basically retired her, and she's my mom's full-time help for the kids and for the grandkids. So we now have full-time help in my family. My sister's had multiple nannies. She has 4 kids. And we are not rich, but it's just a community thing. One thing I'm still working on is getting my family a housekeeper. So we do have someone to help now in our house in the desert. But yeah, this is just common knowledge. If a guy doesn't believe in help, red flag, run.
There are men who do not like to see women rest, because rest is reflection. There are men who want women to be in a constant state of labor, because if you are constantly laboring, you do not have time to think. You do not have time to sit and reflect. Resting clears your mind, and a clear mind is dangerous to anyone who benefits from your exhaustion. If you have time to sit, reflect, and think, you start to realize who you are, your worth, and what is happening around you. And what you might find out is that I don't even like this man. I don't even want to be around this man. This man is not somebody that I want to spend my time with. This is not a man that I want to live with. This is not a man that I see a future with. But a lot of women don't get the opportunity to do that, and they find themselves attached to a man that they shouldn't be because they've been in a constant state of labor. They've never had the opportunity to slow down and see that man for who he truly is.
So here's my hot take on that Summer Walker interview. If you've seen it, I don't know the man that she was interviewing with, but I know that I seen it on IG. Okay, and then I happen to be looking in the comments as one person does. And please explain to me why they were practically attacking little Summer in regards to how she feels when she says she wants people to have the money. Now, here's my thing. I hope they realize that Summer got money too. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. They're making her feel like, in the comments, like she can't be a woman that asks for money. She's a woman that has money. And even if she didn't have money, she's a woman that deserves to have money. My hot take on it is that these men want you to practically be their slave for free. They don't think that you deserve provisions to be provided and to be protected and to be cared for. They want everything for free. They want to suck the life force out of you for free. They want you to work for them for free. They don't think that you deserve any type of compensation. They want to use your womb, your mind, your energy, your body, your soul for free. That's what I got out of it. Because anytime a woman, whether or not she has money, a millionaire, whether or not she has money, says that she wants a man that has money, it's like, mind blown. What do you mean? Oh my God. And it's always the ones that can't provide that always have this kind of conversation, because the men that she is available for in her scope of dating is not the same type of men that are in these comments. Trust and believe. We're talking about individuals she has access to that have money. So regardless of all that, these men want to use and abuse you for free. For free. That's what they want. They want to use and abuse you for free. They don't want to pay for anything. They want to have you out here in a corner somewhere with a grippy sock vacation, wrapped up in a sheet, talking about some it just drives me insane.
Let's jump into my favorite part of all of the content I post on YouTube, and that's just my thoughts, where I get to kind of express what I feel about whatever we have read or gone over. So let's get into it. Let's jump into this one. So, a part of women and men having challenges in the dating environment today comes down to this particular point. I believe it's something that most men aren't aware of, or at least not willing to admit to, but it's something that more and more women are gaining awareness of. And that is that men want women's labor. They feel entitled to it, and they also get annoyed a lot of times when they see a woman at rest, because they think a woman should always be working and performing labor. And of course, this is not all men, but I would say it is far too commonplace for this dynamic, and it's usually subconscious, sometimes it's conscious, for men to interact with women this way. And they can oftentimes get very annoyed with a partner because they're not performing labor. And a lot of women who have decided to move away from dating men, or they really don't want to be bothered, this is a major component to it. They do not want additional labor in their homes, in their lives, etc., just because they're dealing with a man. And I published a video not too long ago about men weaponizing food and them just being gluttonous and greedy. And part of that is, it's a power move, it's a power play, but it's also that men who participate in that type of behavior and eating up all the food, etc., they constantly want to see a woman performing labor, and terms of cooking. So if she's cooking for the week and trying to portion out things, he is upset that there's going to be days where she's not cooking. Now, it is very unwise to get in this dynamic in the first place, and this only comes with clear communication at the beginning, so you can tell if this is his mindset, whether he's conscious of it, unconscious of it, very misogynistic about it, how he feels about women and their labor, etc. A lot of men do not feel that women deserve any rest, when in fact, scientifically, women need more rest than men. But people messing with your sleep, people doing things that cause you always to have to do work and more labor, it is intentional. It is intentional. It is a type of abuse. It is a type of control. It is a way to beat down your self-esteem. It is a way to just wear you down overall. And that is why women need to be very careful in the types of relationships they choose to be in. So at the beginning, this is something I've worked with many of my clients. At the beginning of any initial, talking phase with a man, you want to ask him the type of, household he grew up in. I would say from my personal experience, this is anecdotal, as well as experience of many of my clients, men who were raised in single mother households, they are very conditioned to seeing a woman work and overwork and work herself to exhaustion. That is normal to him. And you need to be very clear, you will not be doing that. You are not his mother. You are not going to try to work yourself to the bone for him. That is his normal in how he views women. Okay? Be very aware of that. If he comes from not even just a single parent household, if he came from a household where his dad was there, but his mother was the one pulling all the weight and doing all the work and paying the bills, and his father was allowed to really lollygag and not contribute nearly as much, or she always made an excuse, or she was a pick me, or even if it was an abusive exchange and she was being financially abused by the man in the home, but she was the one working and doing all the provision with monetary things, etc. That is also a very bad situation. He saw a lot of abuse in a domestic and romantic partnership. That's been normalized for him to some extent. And he's also seen a woman work herself to death to please a man. That has been normalized for him. He may be aware of it, but he need to go to therapy about that, because that's a very unhealthy normal that he has seen and probably, believes in some way, shape, or form should play out in his own relationships. The only way I've seen this work personally is the man who has unpacked all of this, or the man who grew up in a household where his mother, even if she was a housewife, wasn't just performing labor all the time. Because even men who grew up in healthy two-parent households where the father's the one who made the money and the mom stayed home, he's still used to seeing a woman work herself to death in the home. That's not healthy either. Men have to really unpack that expectation of women, because most women in this day and age, I would say, don't necessarily see a man as just a paycheck. I'm not saying they saw him as just a paycheck back then, but in this era where men aren't going to college as much as women and things like that, that doesn't mean a woman should accept a man who is doing way worse than her. There's a range you need to be in. If she's making $200,000 a year, him making 50 is probably going to cross a lot of contentious relationships. Now, it could work. It could, but for most people I know of and most personality types, that dynamic is not going to work. He is always going to be threatened and feel some type of way about his manhood because she makes more, and she may be, very resentful because she makes more and she has to pull all this load, and he is on the back end, because his ego is threatened, is going to cause other problems in the relationship. I don't think that's it. But a man who is raised in a healthy two-parent household, who he saw more of an egalitarian, more of a split of duties, whether his mom worked or not, but in the household, he saw more of a split of duties, or a more even share split of duties, and he was taught life skills. Those are the type of relationships where you can actually pour into and potentially have something. Now, that's, of course, other factors would have to be at play, but it is very important to state these things up front. I know a huge thing for me is I'm very big on, I don't cook. I have meal delivery services and I can afford certain things. I don't clean. I can afford cleaning services. So I am very clear about those things up front because I already am at a level where my time is more important to me and I now have the money to pay for services where I'm not doing all of that. So a man who expects a woman to perform labor will get very upset, annoyed, etc. when you talk about you rest, you outsource things. Because if his mindset is you should be performing labor every waking moment, he is not going to like that you are taking his rest. He is going to feel insulted and he is going to feel that you would be taking something from him, quote unquote, if you were in a relationship. That is his entitlement, his misogyny, his ego, and probably poor examples that were set before him growing up. That's not saying any of the their moms were bad or caregivers were bad. That's just saying what he saw, the pattern that he saw growing up of how women should be in the household is going to be very challenging for him to be in a healthy relationship with a woman because he thinks she should be working, like a farm animal in the house at all times and she should not rest. Very problematic mindset. And it can be very subtle too, because there are oftentimes I have worked with clients and even in my own dating experience have talked to men and on pretty much every other level they're fine. But we get to that talking about domestic things and, inside the home. And then he will say something that completely, tanks his, likability score to zero. And that's because of what he's seen pattern, the behaviors patterned in front of him growing up, displayed in front of him growing up, as well as what he believes he should do versus what a woman should do in the home. And a lot of times he thinks he should be resting and doing very little, in air quotes, helping out. You're not helping out when you're an adult in a household. You should be an equal contributor in all facets, right? The money thing, that's a different conversation based upon the income levels, but those income levels should not be that far apart per se, unless you're talking about really high net worth men. So men want labor. It's very important to understand that whether they're conscious of it or unconscious of it, they want women's labor. And a lot of men are mad because women aren't dating them, so then they can milk that free labor. Be cautious, be aware, and ask a lot of questions and really talk about these things, especially once you get into the flow of dating somebody. But even at the beginning stages, you can ask one or two questions about, how they live and what they do. And it will come up. It will come up very easily. He might even joke and say, oh, I expect my girlfriend or my wife to do this. He. Remember, men's jokes aren't jokes. They are saying exactly what they mean. They're just wrapping it in a smile and a chuckle, but it's not a joke. Let me know your thoughts below. All right, ladies, if this resonated with you, take it as your sign to stop downplaying the red flags, stop normalizing exhaustion, and start choosing relationships where rest, respect, and reciprocity are the standard. You deserve partnership, not servitude. If you want deeper guidance, weekly coaching prompts, live discussions, and a community of women who are healing and leveling up with intention, make sure you join our exclusive coffee coaching community. The link is right below. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a video. I'll see you in the next one. Stay soft, stay smart, and stay intentional.